Vanuit een verzorgingstehuis in Jeruzalem heb ik zo een gesprek met Sarah Goodman, een vrouw die de Holocaust overleefde. Welkom bij Uitgelicht. We zitten hier in Jeruzalem aan tafel bij Sarah Goodman. Sarah Goodman, good evening. Can you tell me, you were born just a few years before the Second World War broke out. What is your first memory as a child?
My first memory as a child, my own memory, is running with my father carrying me through some tunnels between one station and another, and I'm yelling, meine Füße, meine Füße. He's holding me like this. I'm about 4 years old, and I'm getting squashed by people.
Because you were born in Germany, right?
I was born in Germany, but we kept running through Europe. And he switched me around to free my legs, and with his other hand, he desperately held on to my sister Susan, because his one nightmare was to lose one of us. Mm. People who lost a relative in the mess of the war usually never found them.
Do you have a lot of memories of you as a child?
No.
Which one?
Life went on. But I wrote a book about our World War II experiences, our Holocaust experiences, and writing it reminded me. But when we started writing it, my parents were no longer alive, and I wrote with my sister, my younger sister Hadassah, who was fortunate not to be born in Europe, but born in Cuba.
Cuba. Can you explain your story? Because I understand that you traveled a lot in your youth.
We kept running in front. My father explained it that when the Nazis came in one side of the country, we were running out of the other end of the country. And when I speak to young people, I hang up a map of Europe because they're a little hazy with their geography. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about running through 5 countries in Europe. Cuba is 6, America is 7, and Israel is 8.
Can you start in the beginning?
Yes, I was 2.5 when the night of the broken glass happened, Kristallnacht. And my father was arrested because he was a Jew owning a store, which was against the Nuremberg laws. The laws were put out to make life miserable for the Jews. All kinds of things were forbidden. I was born at home because my mother was not allowed to use a hospital. Mm-hmm. Anyway, my father was arrested and the store was wrecked, and my mother succeeded in bringing him clothing because it was before the camps. Mm-hmm. It was a small local jail, and it was in Dortmund, Germany, where I was born. So she brought him clothing, and she brought him his good watch, and some kind guard said to her, don't give him the watch, he won't have it very long. Mm-hmm. That was the beginning. My mother decided she must get her children out. This was a very brave decision, an unbelievable decision. She just didn't sit home and cry. Mm. She always looked for a solution. She discussed it with relatives and friends and remembered relatives in Belgium, called them up, and they had 2 young girls. So the decision was they would send their nanny, their babysitter, whatever you want to call her, with the passports of the 2 Belgian girls, and this woman would take us under somebody else's papers. Right. Now, I'm 2.5, I don't understand what's going on. I'm put on a train with my big sister, with a strange woman who doesn't speak German, and we're off somewhere. Nobody explains anything to children in those days. Mm. We get to Belgium, and there isn't enough room for both of us in the same apartment, because the family Frisch has 2 children. So one of us is placed with a brother. The same street, but bottom line, I'm 2.5, I'm with strangers.
And you were separated from your sister?
We were separated, but not all the time. I'm sure we met, they were on the same street. These people were convinced we would soon be orphans, so they never spoke about my parents.
How long were you there?
Till my parents joined me, and they did join us at 3 months about, which a child that young is a long time. I got completely adjusted. I learned to speak to them as far as I know. I would like to tell you how my parents got there. Yes. Because they could not just buy tickets and go. Jews, because of the Nuremberg laws, were not allowed to travel. And they discussed it, and they got advice, and they were told about a smuggler who would take them to the Belgian border. To meet the smuggler, they had to go into another town. To get to the other town, they had to get a train. You cannot get on a train if you're Jewish in 1938. Mm. So somebody advised them, and this is the most incredible part, and I've told this over and over, and I still don't understand it. Mm. They came into the train station. The checkups were not done in the entrance; they were done on people in the train itself, on the train. They got to the train that they needed, and they crawled under the train. and held on to long bars underneath the train, and that's how they traveled. And nobody saw this. Oh, you can't take young children and you can't take suitcases if you're holding on for dear life. They got to where they needed, and again, they got out. And nobody saw people crawling out. There were lots of Gestapo around, but they were checking people sitting.
Yeah.
And they hadn't been told about this method. I don't understand it. My mother, as I knew her, was fastidious and elegant, and here she's crawling under a train. I usually explain that the train in those days was on the surface of the ground and not in ditches like they are now. Okay, so they meet the smuggler. The smuggler is another wise guy. He has a big truck with a cabin in the front for him, for the driver, a cabin in the back for his merchandise, which was wooden logs, and in between is a small hidden cabin that isn't visible to the naked eye. And he places my parents there, standing upright, very quiet. They have to be quiet, and they can't move, and there's no room to move. In addition, he sticks in 2 young Jewish girls who also had paid. My parents do not know the girls; they're not related. Okay, and off he goes, and he starts traveling. They go a few kilometers. They come to a check post. He has to stop. He has to show his papers, his driver's license, etc. And the Nazis who are checking aren't about to unload the train, the whole truck, but they suspect maybe somebody is smuggling. So their solution is to take out their guns and go pack, 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 shoot into the truck. Now the 4 hidden people heard this. No one was hurt, but as I said, the driver is a very big, wise guy. He's allowed to continue. He goes a few more kilometers, stops his truck, and tells the people, look what's happening to my truck. Look how dangerous it is. You have to pay me more. So he squeezes more money for them. This happens the second time. They gave him more money. And the third time, after a few hours already, I don't know exactly where, the girls tell him, we have nothing to give you. My mother had paid him already with a piece of jewelry that she had sewn into her coat. So he tells the girls, you have no more money, out, in the middle of nowhere. My father and mother could not participate in such a thing. They didn't know how far their money would last. They didn't know the girls. They had no obligation, but they had a human feeling that they must help, and my father paid for the 2 girls. Right. And then after that, there were no more stops, no more checks. They came to the Belgian border, and here they got off. They thanked the driver. The girls thanked them and thanked them, and parted ways. I don't know the girls' names. I don't know if they survived. I just know my parents did this. Now they went into Belgium, and they went into Antwerp, and they knocked on the door. Now they had told the family Frisch that they were coming, but they didn't quite believe that they would get out because they knew what the situation was.
Right, so it was really a surprise.
It was a surprise. They knock on the door, and they come in, and I don't know who these people are. I'm 2 3/4. I haven't seen them for 3 months.
Yeah.
And suddenly it clicks, and I burst out crying. And my sister Susan, who's sitting there, also starts crying, and Mrs. Frisch is crying, and my mother's crying.
Do you remember that moment?
No.
Or was it told to you?
It was told to me. Because what happened is, it was a hysterical scene, and my father is sitting on the side, and he makes 2 very important decisions. And I wrote it in the book. I didn't realize how important these decisions are, but with my years of talking about it, I'm learning myself to understand the story in depth. He decides he's not staying in a country where the Nazis come in, number 1. Number 2, we're not separating. Now, people tell me these are ridiculous decisions and impossible, and it's not in his control, and I have to agree. But they moved him and my mother. They kept them moving. Other people would wait to sell something, or for someone to get over a cold, or for some other relative to join them, or who knows what reason. But my parents didn't wait. Whenever they could, they moved. And this is one of the reasons that with God's help, we succeed in getting out.
During the wartime, did you or your family anytime experience anti-Semitism? So people, treating the Jewish people in
I
bad
know
way?
anti-Semitism in the States, and during these years in Europe, I don't know. They may have. I was too young to know.
Yeah.
And they made a point for years of not talking about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why was that?
Because it hurt too much. My father, at the end of his life, spoke a little bit to my younger sister because he knew his life was coming to an end, and she coaxed him. And one of the things he told her was that he counted 250 of his immediate family had been murdered.
250?
Yeah. And he knew that he lost contact. We have letters that his father wrote a few times, and then it stopped. And my mother told us a bit. Also, she spoke to other people. We were children. My youngest sister always said she felt something in the air, that we all knew a secret that she didn't know. You don't tell a young child what the background is. No. Eventually she found out.
So what about you? You feel that you don't want to talk about it, or
No, I talk a lot.
you talk a lot?
I can say I'm not traumatized as much as some of the people who went through the camps, because except for the 3 months in Belgium, I was with my parents.
Yeah.
What their troubles were, I didn't know. That they didn't know where we would sleep the next night, or how they could get me a new pair of shoes when my shoes didn't fit. I had no idea. I don't know how much money. My father worked a bit here and there. I have no idea how they managed. They never told us.
Right. What do you, can you explain me about anti-Semitism? How can you explain how it rose so much during the war? And
It was there way before. There were Jews being killed way before. I just heard a lecture from, I am constantly learning. The anti-Semitism has been around for a long time. It's just that he managed to organize it more.
yeah. How can you explain that?
I can't. Yeah, bigger
can't?
people than me who can't. Historians and theologists.
You think it's a theological thing?
I'll tell you what one of my grandchildren said. Today he's 9. He was 5 or 6, and his brilliant father, they were all brilliant, was telling him something about the Holocaust. And when the child said, "Why did they hate us and want to kill us?" The educational process is, "What do you think?" Instead of giving him a ready-made answer, he starts thinking. He's very young, and he says, maybe we were better than them."
That's what you think?
No, I don't think. I'm just saying from a child's point of view. And as far as what goes on here in Israel, I think every time we build another road, another hospital, another school, there's just jealousy. Because for whatever reasons, the Arab countries around us are not succeeding in that development the way we are. And this is one of the... I don't have an easy answer. There's no easy answer for that.
If you're looking to Europe nowadays...
They're in a big mess.
What is your opinion about...
They're fading away. They're being taken over by the Muslims.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you worried about it?
I can't start worrying about that. I have a list of things to worry. That's not the top of the list.
Which is on the top of the
In
list?
Israel, my family, all my children are here. All my grandchildren, my sister's children are all here. That's also a miracle, because many families end up splitting up.
Yeah, let's talk about Israel. How did you end up here? Because you traveled all over the world.
Well, that's one of the things I say when I talk about this. I say, after what we went through, it's not surprising that I came to Israel, and I rattle off the names of the 8 countries. And what saved me, my parents had very little money and they struggled in America. To send me to a Jewish school meant paying, so I went to an American school, and my classmates were people from the general population. And at a very young age, I joined a youth movement named B'nai Akiva, and I always say B'nai Akiva saved my life. I had a purpose in life, I had a way to go, I had someone reinforcing my belief, I had friends, which I couldn't find a lot of friends in school because they did things on Shabbos that I didn't, on the Sabbath that I didn't do. I came to Israel at age 19.
19?
With other friends.
That you remember. Can you describe me this moment you arrived in Israel?
Well, on my way to the kibbutz that I had made up to go, I visited my aunt and uncle in Haifa.
Yeah.
And they said, "Don't go to the kibbutz, they're going to take all your stuff away." This was a nonsense prejudice that people in the city had because they weren't well informed. There are today also all kinds of...
But the first moment you arrived in Israel, what did you think?
I'm where I want to be. As I said before, very briefly touched on it, there was anti-Semitism in New York.
Yeah.
My sister, Hadassah, who was born in Cuba, when she was 8 or 10 years old, was getting piano lessons. We were living in Washington Heights. She was going to, near where we lived, she walked over some kind of a very expensive complex of buildings, and there was a sign on the outside, "No Jews or dogs allowed." Really?
In New York?
In New York. My sister was born in 41, so not 50, 49, 50. And the guard at the building always questioned her. He knew very well that she had piano lessons. And he's questioning her, each time giving her a hard time. After a few times, she complained to my father. He immediately stopped the lessons and found another teacher. But this went on, yes. There were other incidents.
So these were reasons for you to leave America to come to...
No, it wasn't reasons. I didn't leave America because America was bad. I went to Israel because Israel was my home. It's a different program, not the negative.
Explain me about Israel. Why does it feel so much like your home?
I always learned Jewish history, and we were observant. My family was always observant. It's part of my tradition. This is our home. There's no home. And I'm very, very blessed that all my children and grandchildren, one by one, are here.
How many children do you have?
3 children and 16 grandchildren. Half of them have gotten married. I have to tell you about the last one because it's a very unusual story. He finished his army duty and he did very hard army service, and he wanted to start university, but you know the young people, they need a little bit of time between this and that. He's looking for something to do, and he tried all kinds of jobs. In the end, it was suggested that he should become an emissary for B'nai Akiva. All my children were involved in B'nai Akiva. So he was sent to Germany, and I said to him, "You're going to Germany? Why are you going to Germany?" Well, in Germany there's young people from Russia, and they're helping them. They're teaching them about Judaism, and they're helping. Okay, he's only going for 6 months. Oh, and he didn't need my blessing. I'm only the grandmother. I said, "Oh, lovely young man." Okay. He gets there, and he's involved with a group, and he meets a young woman who's from Israel, who's also there as an emissary, and they meet and fall in love, and they got married last December. So I said, "You could have met her here. She doesn't live that far from where he lives." No, this is the way things are done that we don't know. Yeah. They're very sweet. I just saw them this weekend,
Right. Are you happy that your family is here with you in Israel?
I'm blessed. I'm blessed, and I'm in touch with them, and we're all on WhatsApp together, and they come and visit me. And I didn't live in Jerusalem all my years. I'm here 2.5 years. I came from Haifa.
Right.
I retired here to an assisted living place, and I'm very pleased. I'm much more in the middle of things.
You have lived through a very hard time in your childhood. What would be your message to the people who are watching this and have not experienced World War II?
Well, first of all, I very much tell people to have faith. And if I'm speaking to Jewish people, to follow our traditions. I'm speaking to general people. Faith is very important. In addition, family is very important. I'm living in a place with about 80 people here, and a handful who do not have family, you really feel how they suffer. Yeah. Very important. And I'm very fortunate that my children are in the same area. Some people here are family that live on the other side of the world, and when they get sick and then there's an emergency, not so easy. Right.
So
family, I think, is very important.
Family, but still, if you're looking, if I'm looking from a distance from Holland to Israel, and I see what's happening in the news, it's always about terror attacks and about hate and about conflict and politics. How is the real situation?
You cannot assume that the newspaper is giving you any kind of accurate picture. A lot of it is exaggerated, and a lot of it is out of content, and they never write the good news. That's not news. That's not going to sell newspapers. The more dramatic the story, the more...
But it happens, doesn't it?
It happens, but we feel that we're managing. We're succeeding. We're fighting.
Aren't you worried about the terrorists and the
I'm not
hatred?
worried. I've never been worried. I always traveled everywhere. I went on all kinds of places.
A last question to you. You told me before we have this interview that you speak regularly to groups and you tell your story. Why is it that you do it? What do you want to
Well, first of all, it's easier. Some people have wonderful stories and are incapable of telling them. I put my material together myself for my book. And I'm not so traumatized as people who were unfortunate to have their lives in concentration camps and people who lost a lot of family. Most of my I traveled with my immediate family, and I was only 3 months separated from my parents. So I'm able to talk, and with the years I've developed it, and I get a wonderful response. I spoke to birthright groups, and they're so happy that I come. And they give me a hug and a kiss, and they take my picture, and some people stay in touch, and they want to hear it, and they're very ignorant, some of them. They don't,
so it's important to do it.
I feel I have an obligation. I never asked for payment. We never sold our book. It was not commercial. The book we wrote in order to honor our parents and inform our children.
I want to thank you for this interview, Sarah Goodman.
I'm happy to speak to you.
U thuis ook bedankt voor het kijken. Dit was een Uitgelicht special vanuit Israël. We zien u graag morgen weer.